Hey everyone, welcome back to Revenge by Larry. I'm really glad you're here today. Make sure you watch this story all the way to the end. And don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts. I read everyone. I was 5 months divorced, 36 years old, and trying to keep my head down. Most mornings I walked to Briarstone Ledger and Tax, grabbed black coffee from a cart with no name, and didn't think much about the past. That Tuesday didn't let me do that. The air felt weird, sky low, like it wanted to press the whole street flat. I was at the Sycamore Avenue station when Franklin Doss grabbed my wrist. I'd known him by sight for years. Old guy, maybe 70s, always parked on the bench near track 3 with a gray cup and a beat-up jacket. I dropped a couple bucks in when I had extra, never really talked. He didn't ask for anything this time. Just gripped my wrist with both hands and looked me dead in the eye. His voice was rough like gravel but steady. Don't go back to your place tonight, no matter what. Stay away. I blinked, tried to laugh it off. Franklin, what? His grip tightened. For someone his age, it was shockingly strong. His hands trembled, but he didn't let go. Please, kid. Anywhere but home. He looked terrified. Not spaced out, not high, just scared. Then he let go, sat back, like his batteries ran out, and wouldn't meet my eyes again. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. And let's continue. I stood there a second longer, then headed to my train. People pushed past like nothing had happened, but the weight of his voice sat between my ribs. On the train, I stared at my reflection in the window. Half-shaven face, collar wrinkled, eyes dull. I kept telling myself Franklin was confused. Maybe something was off in his head, but the man was sharp every other day, never once mistaken me for someone else. I remembered the way his hands shook. That wasn't confusion. That was fear. Everything in my life had already cracked, Mallory gone, in-laws that pretended I never existed, friends too polite to ask what happened. I'd made peace with starting over. That meant showing up, doing my hours, and not letting the pieces fall again. I told myself the warning would fade by lunch, that I'd laugh about it over a cold sandwich in the break room. But something had burrowed in. Felt like the moment before a storm when the wind dies and your skin knows before your brain does. I still walked to work. I still sat at my desk. But that night, I didn't go home. Back when I thought I knew how life worked, I figured comfort meant married by 30, house by 33, couple of kids by 35. I had that lined up mostly. Mallory and I met at 29, moved in quick, and married inside a year. At first, it worked. She liked early brunches, home decor magazines, weekend trips to antique malls. We'd make dumb bets about what kind of dogs we'd get. She liked control, but it was soft at first. Suggestions, not orders. It changed slow. At first, it was little jokes about my job. Purchasing isn't sexy, babe, but hey, somebody's got to cut the checks. Then came the sharper ones. You ever think about moving up? You've been at that place forever. Every comment had a smile, but the smile got thinner each time. Her mother, Carla, didn't joke. She watched me like I was a pothole Mallory hadn't seen yet. At dinners, she'd ask about retirement plans, long-term goals, stuff that sounded polite but felt like a quiz. I'd nod, give the right answers, then go out back to breathe. I wasn't useless. I worked full-time in purchasing at a regional supply wholesaler, handled accounts, kept vendors happy. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the mortgage and bought the antique chairs she loved. I never missed a bill. But when the company started cutting hours last fall and I went from full-time to 32 hours a week, something cracked in her. She didn't say she was done. She just started working later, coming home already halfway mad, always tired, but never too tired to throw shade. By March, I was sleeping on the couch more nights than not. In April, we called it. No yelling, no cheating. Just two people too worn down to fix it. We signed the papers on a Thursday. By Monday, I was living in a one-bedroom apartment on the east side of Columbus with a folding chair and my old couch. People at the old job looked at me like I'd lost a limb. I left, walked into Briarstone Ledger and Tax 2 weeks later, and didn't look back. The building's old, 3 floors of exposed brick and ducts, smells like copier toner and vending machine gum. My boss, Martin Keeler, had the kind of face that said, "Don't waste my time," before he even opened his mouth. He handed me a desk, a password, and a pile of account files. Said, "Keep your head down, flag weird stuff, don't ask dumb questions." That was his version of a welcome. I told myself it was exactly what I needed. Low drama, steady hours, numbers that don't lie. I worked fast, kept quiet. But after a couple months, I started noticing things that didn't fit. Vendor names I'd never seen. Payments off by a few hundred. When I asked Martin, he brushed it off, said, "That's handled." Then he closed my folder and walked away. Next morning, I walked in like normal. Badge tap, elevator buzz, same bitter coffee in my travel mug. But before I could even step inside the building, Rudy Nash was already standing by the glass doors. He was new, maybe 2 months in. Big guy, not much of a talker, usually just nodded. But that day, he smiled, like we were old buddies. "You still living off Eastwood?" he asked. I paused with my hand on the door. His voice was low and flat, like he didn't care one way or another. But it was the kind of question that feels friendly on the outside and wrong underneath. I said, "Yeah, near Emerson," and kept walking before he could ask anything else. My cubicle was ice cold, the way it always felt first thing in the morning. I dropped my bag, booted up my system, and saw the March folder on my desk. Same one I'd closed out last week. It had my notes, my dots in the top right corners like always. My system to mark which invoices were already signed. I flipped the first one open and stopped cold. No client signature. Second one, same thing. Dot was there. Signature gone. Third, dot, but no initials, no stamp. My stomach turned. I remembered these clearly. They were signed Monday. I don't forget details like that. I leaned back, tried to think, wondered if something glitched in the file system, but this was hard copy. Ink and paper. That's when Martin showed up behind me, folder in hand, mouth pressed tight, like he was chewing on a lemon. He tapped the folder once on his palm and said, "You miss a few steps, Evan?" I turned, looked him dead in the eye. These were signed Monday. I marked them. He froze, just for half a second. Then he forced a smile that didn't reach his eyes and said, "Happens. I'll handle it." He took the folder and walked off like someone had lit a fire under him. Right then, Franklin's voice hit me again like a freight train. "Don't go back to your place tonight." And Rudy, asking where I lived, all casual, like he wasn't already briefed. My arms went cold even though the building was warm. It felt like static under my skin. I tried to shake it, told myself I was overreacting, but I couldn't focus. I stared at my screen, hands on the keyboard, not typing a thing. The numbers blurred. My brain kept circling the same drain. By noon, I hadn't done a single thing useful. I sat there watching a spreadsheet flicker like it was going to explain what was happening. Nothing made sense, but I couldn't pull myself out of the seat either. At 3, I shut the screen off and stood up. I wasn't paranoid anymore. I was sure. I waited until the office started emptying out, sitting at my desk pretending to work while the rest of the crew filed out one by one. I didn't want to walk past Rudy again. I didn't want another weird comment or that look he gave, like he knew something I didn't. Once the coast was clear, I slipped my bag over my shoulder, took the back stairwell, and kept my head low. 4 flights down, each step louder than I wanted it to be. I pushed out the side exit into the alley, checked both ends, and then walked fast toward the sidewalk like I was late for something. My legs turned east out of habit, aiming straight for my apartment. I stopped at the corner without meaning to, just stood there like an idiot with my key already in hand. My brain started laying out the night ahead like it always did. Unlock the door, heat up soup, maybe half watch a ball game while scrolling my phone. But Franklin's voice came in hard. Anywhere but home. I didn't imagine that. His hand was shaking when he said it. And now there were missing signatures and Rudy suddenly caring where I lived. No way all of that was just weird timing. I pulled out my phone and searched for somewhere cheap to crash. A hostel popped up, Holbrook Street, near a shuttered diner and a pawn shop I recognized from the bus route. It looked rough, but I didn't care. I booked a bunk and started walking. I took the long way, eyes bouncing from windows to alley gaps. I told myself it was just nerves, that nobody was following me. But I still checked my reflection in every glass front I passed. My palms were damp. My heart hadn't slowed since I left the office. The hostel had the kind of door you had to buzz twice to get someone to care. A sleepy guy in socks gave me a room key and pointed upstairs. The whole place smelled like detergent and carpet that had given up 10 years ago. My mattress dipped hard in the middle, and the springs made this ugly noise every time I shifted. I lay there staring at the ceiling. There was a water stain in the shape of Ohio. I counted the dots in it just to have something to do. I kept hearing footsteps in the hallway. Someone coughed once. I held my breath. Around 2, I must have dozed off because the next thing I knew, I sat straight up, heart hammering. I could have sworn someone said my name. A whisper, or maybe a dream. I couldn't tell. I stared at the door like it might open on its own. Then at 4:30, my phone lit up and buzzed loud enough to scare me. I grabbed it fast and saw Nate Holloway's name on the screen. I answered on the second buzz, still half sitting up in the dark. Nate didn't bother with hello. Tell me you're not at your apartment. My mouth went dry right away. I'm not. I'm at a hostel. He let out a breath so loud it cracked through the phone. Good. Evan, your building's on fire. The news chopper's over it right now. I swung my feet to the floor and grabbed my shoes. My hands shook so bad the laces slapped against the sides. The room felt too small, like the walls had crept in while I slept. What floor? I asked. There was a pause. I heard him swallow. Started on 5. Yours. The words sat there between us, heavy and final. I stared at the peeling paint by the door and felt heat rise up my neck like the fire had already found me. All I could see were the stupid details I hadn't packed yet. The couch with the busted arm, the framed photos still stacked by the TV, the box of letters I never opened because I didn't want to know what was inside. Sirens wailed somewhere far off, but I heard them like they were screaming inside my chest. I pulled my jacket on over wrinkled clothes and walked out without saying goodbye to anyone. The early air smelled sharp, like rain hadn't decided yet. By the time I got close, the street was blocked off. Red lights bounced off windows and wet pavement. I stood behind yellow tape with a crowd of people wrapped in borrowed blankets, all of us staring up at the same thing. Smoke still curled out of broken windows like the building was breathing wrong. The 5th floor looked punched straight through, black and hollow. I knew exactly which window had been mine. Everything smelled like wet ash and chemicals that burned the back of my throat. A woman near me kept asking if anyone had seen her cat. A guy in pajama pants kept saying his brother was still inside. Names floated around in whispers, passed like fragile things. I couldn't bring myself to say mine out loud. If I'd gone home like normal, I would have been dead asleep when it started. That thought landed hard and didn't let go. I stood there until my eyes burned and my head felt tight, until the sun crept up and made the smoke look gray instead of black. I left before anyone asked me questions I couldn't answer, and walked towards Sycamore on pure instinct. My legs carried me there without checking in with my brain. Franklin was already on his bench, wrapped in his coat, hands folded like he was holding onto something fragile. He spotted me before I said a word. His eyes widened, and he pressed a hand to his chest like he needed to steady himself. "I'm glad you listened," he said. I stepped closer to him and nodded once because my voice still hadn't come back. I crouched in front of Franklin, knees stiff, breath stuck halfway in my throat. "How did you know?" I asked. My voice came out low and shaky, like it didn't want to leave my mouth. He didn't answer right away, just nodded slowly, like he'd been waiting for me to ask. Then he reached into his faded canvas bag, the one I'd seen 100 times by his feet, and pulled out something that looked like it had been run over. An old flip phone with cracks across the screen like spider webs. "Look," he said, handing it over. "I took these last night." The screen was dim and scratched, but the pictures loaded one by one. The first was the alley behind my building, taken from a weird angle, maybe a block back. 2 men stood there, one of them holding a red plastic gas can. Both of them looked out of place, hoods up, eyes scanning the street like they were expecting trouble. My chest clenched. I flipped to the next photo. It caught their faces. My mouth went dry. I knew one of them. Rudy Nash, the night guard at Briarstone, the one who knew where I lived, the same guy who asked about my address like it was small talk. My stomach dropped so hard I nearly doubled over. "They said your name," Franklin whispered beside me. "Said you'd be done by morning." I looked at him, not sure I'd heard that right. He nodded, eyes glassy. "I don't sleep much. I walk at night sometimes. I was out back, just past the alley. I heard them talking low like they were arguing. Then one of them said, 'As long as Evan's home, it'll work.' That got my ears up real fast. I couldn't move. I couldn't feel my hands. The idea that someone had planned this, waited for me to be asleep, counted on it, made the whole world tilt sideways. "I ran," Franklin said. "Cut through those old warehouses and banged on the back door of a corner shop. The guy called it in, but by then," he shrugged, "I already saw the flames starting." I swallowed, throat raw. "You warned me. You saved my life." He shook his head like he couldn't accept that. "No, son. You saved mine first. You saw me. Everybody else just walks past. You stopped. You spoke. That's all it took." He was dead serious. His voice cracked halfway through it, but he meant every word. I couldn't find the right thing to say, so I just reached out and squeezed his shoulder. He let it sit there. Then his tone changed. "You gotta go, right now. Police, take the phone. Show them. Before those boys figure out you made it out." I nodded, still holding the phone like it was radioactive. "You trust me to bring it back?" "I trust you," he said. "You got the kind of eyes that mean it." I stood up and looked toward Broad Street. My heart was going fast again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was momentum. I said, "Thank you, Franklin." And I meant it hard. Then I turned and started walking toward the 12th precinct, 1 block at a time. The sergeant at the front desk didn't blink when I said my apartment had burned, but when I added, "I think someone tried to kill me," his eyes narrowed, and when I said, "attempted murder," he picked up the phone. 15 minutes later, I was sitting in a cramped room with cinder block walls and buzzing lights. Detective Aaron Mercer walked in, mid-40s, tie already loosened, voice low and flat. He had the kind of jaw that said he didn't waste time asking twice. I laid it out start to finish, Franklin's warning, Rudy's creepy questions, the missing invoice signatures, the fire that started on my floor. I told him why I'd gone to the hostel instead of home, and what I saw when I came back at sunrise. I ended with the flip phone and slid it across the table like it might explode. He flipped it open, scrolled through the photos slowly, zoomed in on Rudy's face and let out a quiet breath. "This guy work in your building?" "Yeah," I said. "He's the night shift guard. Been there about 2 months." He pulled his own phone and took photos of the screen before logging the flip into a plastic evidence bag. His fingers moved fast, practiced. "I can get an emergency warrant off this. Arson gives us exigency. We'll move tonight if the judge signs it." Then he looked me dead in the eye. "Keep off familiar routes, no buses, no trains, and avoid crowds. If they thought you were inside, they'll be surprised you made it. Some people don't like surprises." Those words sank deep. I nodded. A cold calm settled into my gut. Not panic, just a locked-in kind of alert. I called Nate and told him everything. He said, "Come over now." And I did. He lived on the north side, a quiet little duplex with 2 locks on every door. When I got there, he let me in fast and locked the deadbolt behind me like it was muscle memory. "Man," he muttered, shaking his head. "What did you walk into?" He sat down at his kitchen table and opened his laptop. "You said something was off with the invoices. What exactly was bugging you?" I sat next to him and opened my email. I'd forwarded some files to myself a few days earlier, back when I thought I was just being thorough. I pulled up the folder and clicked the top file. It was all there: spreadsheet, attached invoices, digital scans of approvals. One stood out like a gut punch: $83,500 to a vendor called Granite Ridge Advisory. I clicked through. No company website, no contact info. The listed address was a P.O. box in Sandusky. The signature line looked pasted on, like someone had cropped it in from another file. "I've seen that name before," I muttered. I started scrolling through my saved folders and found 4 more payments, same pattern, same weird vendor names, same amounts in the 80 to 90,000 range, all spread out over the past few months. Nate looked over my shoulder. "Shell company, somebody's laundering something." "No," I said, my stomach twisting. "Somebody's stealing." It hit hard, like a punch from the inside. I'd walked right into someone's pipeline, and now they knew I'd noticed. I leaned forward, grabbed the mouse, and started making a list. I sent everything to Mercer: spreadsheets, screenshots, notes I scribbled in the margins, vendor names I'd flagged but never said out loud. I organized it into folders the way I'd been trained to do at Briarstone. I knew how to make a paper trail. I just never thought it'd be to save my own life. The rest of the day moved slow and thick, like walking underwater. Nate tried to keep busy, but both of us kept checking the clock like it might speed up if we stared hard enough. It was 8:15 when my phone finally lit up. "The judge signed the warrant just after 6, Mercer said. "We hit Briarstone right after. Seized machines, hard drives, physical files, everything." His voice didn't rise or fall, just steady. I leaned forward, phone tight to my ear. "You were right," he said. "Layered transfers, all of them round numbers, 80,000, 90,000, 72.5. Pushed through shell companies. 5 different entities, all fake, all linked to addresses that don't exist. Total sitting just over 720,000, spread across roughly 13 months. My head spun. I squeezed my eyes shut and braced my elbow on Nate's table. "Keeler?" "Detained," Mercer said. "But here's where it gets worse. He hired Rudy Nash directly. No proper background check, and Rudy's got an aggravated assault conviction out of Indianapolis." "That figures," I muttered. "Who's the second guy?" "Trevor Lyle, cousin of one of Keeler's former business partners. In the system already. Fraud, possession, couple of sealed juvenile records. He's in those alley photos, too." I rubbed my jaw. "You find Rudy?" "Gone by the time we got there," Mercer said. "We've got a bolo across state lines. Nothing yet." Then he dropped the line that really hit. "Keeler's trying to pin this on you." My back went straight. You're kidding. He says you processed the invoices, approved the payments, pushed them through without question. I barked a laugh and felt my face heat up. He's got my initials on those authorizations? He's got doctored emails, Mercer said. Ones that look like they're from you, but they were created using draft chains edited from his own account. His timestamps are a mess. Sloppy cover job. Nate had stopped pretending not to listen. He handed me a mug of coffee, and I took it without even tasting it. My hands felt like they belonged to someone else. So now I'm a scapegoat, I said, while my apartment burns down in the middle of the night. Mercer paused, then said, "We're going to keep digging, but you stay put. Avoid public places. We'll get the rest." He hung up without a goodbye. Nate and I sat there in the silence like two men who just watched their house blow away. Nothing to say, just sitting with it. At some point, he slid his laptop over to me. "You want to keep digging?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, already opening another file. We stayed up late, barely talking, just combing through old approvals. The deeper we got, the more it became clear I hadn't imagined any of it. Same handwriting on different vendor names, same round numbers, spaced just far enough apart to blend in. It wasn't amateur work, it was just arrogant. They thought nobody would care enough to look. At 6:40 in the morning, my phone rang again. I picked it up on the first buzz. "We got him," Mercer said. "Trailways Terminal downtown. Ticket to Tennessee in his jacket pocket." When Mercer called again, his voice had a different weight to it. "Rudy talked," he said. "So did Trevor. They flipped within the hour." I didn't say anything. I was sitting on Nate's couch, still wearing the same jeans from the fire. "Keeler offered $12,500 total," Mercer said, "split between them. To torch the fifth floor and, quote, make sure the squeaky wheel didn't squeak." I didn't laugh. "That wheel is me." "Yeah," Mercer said, "it is." Keeler went down hard. Fraud, conspiracy, attempted murder. They stacked the charges in columns. I gave my full statement twice, once for the detectives, once for the DA, and watched 3 people scratch it all out by hand. I spoke like I was reading blueprints, slow and detailed, not leaving anything out. I wanted every part of it on record. Insurance dragged for a while. They wanted proof of contents, timelines, signatures. Eventually it came through. I tossed the smoke-ruined clothes and bought a full set of clean, well-fitting stuff that didn't smell like melted plastic. I bought sneakers that didn't squeak when I walked. I shaved, looked in the mirror, and finally saw someone I recognized again. Nate pushed me to apply for something new. "You're not meant to rot in cubicles," he said, "but if you have to, at least do it somewhere that isn't sketchy." I landed an accounts coordinator job at Riverline Partners, a freight brokerage in Worthington. Mid-size, tight books, straight answers. The hiring manager actually said please. First week on the job, someone asked me how I liked my coffee and meant it. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Honest felt brand new. One day after work, I got a text from a number I didn't know. Just said, "Hope you're okay." The name at the top, Carla, my ex-mother-in-law, Mallory's mom. The same woman who once told Mallory behind my back that I didn't have enough horsepower. Now she was checking in like she hadn't ghosted me since the divorce. I read it once, didn't reply, and let it sit there unread. That was enough. It felt like its own kind of revenge. But what stuck with me most wasn't Keeler or Carla or even the fire. It was Franklin. The way his hands shook when he gave me that phone. How he didn't ask for anything, just gave me the warning like it was a piece of himself. So I started going back. Every couple days, I'd find him near the Sycamore station and bring him something. Breakfast sandwiches, gloves, a clean thermos. Sometimes just stood with him and shot the breeze for 10 minutes. He always said he was fine, but his coat was frayed and his cough didn't sound good. The man who saved my life was sitting out in 20-degree wind with a blanket made for picnics. I called Mercer again and asked if he knew any senior assistance programs that actually helped. He gave me the number for a place called Maple Crest Residence. Said they actually cared. The director there, Dana Ruiz, told me they'd evaluate him if he was willing. "We don't force people," she said, "but we open the door." I went to Franklin the next morning with a bag of food and said, "I found a room with a bed, hot meals, and people who'll know your name. If you're ready." He looked at me like I'd handed him a space shuttle. Didn't speak for a solid 10 seconds. Then he just nodded once, slow and real. We took a cab across town. The aide at Maple Crest brought him tea, slippers, and a fresh change of clothes. Franklin walked into the room. Small, clean, a window with light, and stopped at the doorway. "Feels like I woke up somewhere good," he whispered. I said, "You earned it." Then I handed the bag to the aide and went back out to the street. A month later, I got a call from Keeler's lawyer. The guy spoke with that fake calm tone attorneys use when they're selling something. Said his client wanted to speak with me for closure. I didn't owe Keeler a thing. But I said yes, not for him, for me. I needed to see his face. I needed to take back the room he'd been renting in my head for free. The detention center buzzed with doors and voices, and that low electric hum that gets into your bones. They sat us down in one of those windowed booths with the scratched-up phones. Plexiglass between us like they knew trust was out of the question. Keeler looked like someone had unplugged him, smaller, hair grayer, shirt too big. His eyes didn't scan the room like they used to. No rush in him now, just a man watching his own ceiling cave in. He picked up the phone first. "Evan, I'm sorry," he said. "It wasn't supposed to go that far. The debt got to my throat. You noticed things and I panicked." I listened. I didn't nod. Didn't blink too much. I just held the phone and stared straight through him. "You made me the problem," I said. "You tried to erase me?" He looked down. "I wasn't thinking right." I kept my voice low. "I'm not carrying your mess. The court can. I'm done with it." He nodded, mouth twitching like he wanted to argue but didn't have the gas for it. A few tears ran down his face, quiet, tired ones, that didn't change anything. I watched him wipe his nose with the back of his wrist. I hung up first. Outside, the air felt like it belonged to me again. It didn't feel lighter, just clearer, like I didn't owe anything to anyone anymore. Back at Riverline, the spreadsheets balanced. People said good morning and meant it. At Nate's place, we grilled burgers and argued over the Reds' bullpen like we used to. It felt like a life again, not just days passing. Franklin settled into Maple Crest, like the place had been waiting for him. He wore a soft blue flannel most days and told the staff these awful old man jokes that somehow still got laughs. He even joined chair yoga, though he claimed it was just stretching with an audience. On a Saturday in late September, I brought him a small chocolate cake for his birthday. We ate it by the window in the day room while leaves outside shook like they hadn't decided what season it was. "You stopped and saw me," he said. "That changed everything." I looked him in the eye. "You saw me too. When I was trying to shrink out of my own life. I don't believe in signs, but I believe in people who grab your arm when traffic's coming. I still walk past Sycamore Station. I still carry cash in my coat pocket. Not because I'm a saint. Because one day, a man with a cracked phone saved my life, and I needed that to mean something. Before you head out, if someone tried to silence you, confront, or walk away, tap hype, subscribe and like, then comment your take.